Hey, thank you guys so much for being here. As Tori said, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, and especially the way our world is right now, the way our city is right now. I want to thank you for being here tonight. And so we are going to have a lot of fun. As she said, we're going to split it up into 4 quarters, and the first quarter is devoted to community groups. So as we walk into a whole new year of groups, my hope for all of us is that we all learn to use the same playbook as we look to execute our strategy for creating life change in groups. Okay? So our mission, and I want you guys to help me with this, our mission here at the chapel is to what? Help people meet and know, follow Jesus. That's right. And you know, it's really easy to let those words just kind of roll off your tongue and not really consider their meaning. But essentially, what we're doing, our job is to help people experience life change. That's what we do in our groups. We help people experience life change. And in group life, we like to say it like this. Life change happens in circles and not rows. And that statement even is kind of a loaded statement, isn't it? And the idea here is that lives aren't transformed by information alone. Something Kevin mentioned earlier. But lives aren't transformed by information alone. We can hear things, but unless we take what we hear and we apply it to our lives, then it's just only information just kind of stuck in our head. But what we have to do is we have to take that information and apply it as we walk it out through authentic relationships. And that's how our lives are changed. So let me demonstrate what I mean. I want you to think about your top 5 sermons of all time. Top 5 sermons of all time. Do you remember what the sermon points were? Yes. What about the sermon passages? Remember? How about the last 5 sermons you've heard? I'm sorry, Kevin. You guys remember the sermon points from those? All right, well, let me rephrase the question. How about this? Can you tell me the top 5 people in your life that have impacted you spiritually? I'm guessing that you probably can. And you can probably tell me how they've challenged you and specifically what impact that they have made on your life. And that kind of serves my point. Life change happens through relationships, through circles, and not just by information alone. So I wanted to illustrate it like this, okay? Within groups, here we go. Within groups, we want to aim for authentic relationships. And when we do that, through those authentic relationships, we experience life change. So the bottom line, everything I'm saying right now to you, the bottom line is that success this year in your group is measured by life change. Success in your group is measured by life change. And the reason that this is important is because unless we all know what the same goal is in mind, then we'll go for different things. And I want to make sure that we're all going for the same thing as we walk into a whole new semester of groups. All right? So with that understanding, let's go ahead and dive into community groups. All right, you'll see this book on your table. You can go ahead and pull this out. If you're eating, that's fine. Just go ahead and eat. We'll flip through it. Before we dive into this book, I just want to say it's very pretty. And if you see Clint Nicholson, thank him for all his hard work on this. He spent a ton of hard work, as well as the rest of our community or our communication team. Rachel, she updated her website. I mean, you're going to see September 12th, we're going to launch groups, and we have banners, and we have these t-shirts that they did. They just did a ton of stuff for us, and so make sure you thank them. So thank you guys for Rachel Street. She's a blessing to us. So we appreciate her. Okay, so these things look amazing, and for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to attempt to walk our way through this book. Now, I am by no means going to cover everything in this book, so hear me say, I'm going to trust you to do your homework, to read these pages and take a deeper dive into what's here, okay? Because I'm just going to take a brief overview of what's here. But my goal is to get done in less than 20 minutes. All right, let's open it up. Now, the first 2 pages you'll see here, it really just talks about our mission statement and why groups are important, which is something we literally just covered. So I will not walk through that, but if you'll flip one more, you'll see a page labeled the discipleship pathway. Then a discipleship pathway is the way in which someone who comes to the chapel is discipled. This page we cover in First Step. When new people come to our church, we show this to them and we walk them through how they can get involved and how they can be discipled. And we want them to grow in groups. We want them to serve and discover their purpose and begin serving out that purpose within the body. And then we also want them to go. We want them to learn to live sent and, basically take their faith and share it on the campus of LSU, City of Baton Rouge, and all around the world. All right? So that's how people are discipled. I want you to notice where groups fit into that. And within that group structure are D groups, community groups, support group, women's groups, men's groups, and people grow, as we said, through relationships. And really, this is one of the most important parts of this circle because that's where true discipleship takes place. Now, on the other page, you'll see the chapel's group structure. Basically, our group structure, we try to mirror Jesus' ministry. Now, as Jesus spoke to crowds, so do we. As Jesus met in larger circles of brothers and sisters, we try to do that through community groups. Jesus had his three guys that were with him through the highest of highs when he was on the transfiguration up on the mountain, with his lowest of low moments when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. So that's what D groups are for us. It's a place where you can be real and be honest, and so we try to mirror that structure. All right, if you go ahead and turn to the next page, you will see the differences between community groups and D groups. Now, I'm a picture guy, so I like graphs. I would rather look at something like this than try to read a whole page of text. So hopefully you appreciate that like me. Now, you may have seen this before if you've done groups for a while. We've had this in a couple of our books even in the past. I just want to point out a couple things off there on your right side. Number one, the makeup. You'll notice that community groups, we target believers, but we also target not yet believers, right? People who haven't taken that step of faith. We want to invite them into an atmosphere where they can experience authentic community and hopefully take a step to saying yes towards Jesus. Now, D groups, for instance, or D groups on the other hand, it's just believers. Discipleship is for believers. If you look at curriculum, within curriculum, when we do our discussion time, we use sermon-based biblical questions that we give you in community groups. Within D groups, we use our chapel Bible reading plan. But both of those are aligned together. And that's something new within this past year. Another thing, the components, we're going to talk about those tonight, so I won't go in detail of those. But look at growth expectations. Within community groups, we want community groups, one, to add D groups. They don't already have them. But we also want community groups to multiply into more community groups. So there's an impetus on you as a leader to constantly be training new leaders. And we'll talk about that again tonight. You can go ahead and flip the page. Now, these two pages right here may be the most important pages in the whole book within community groups. As we create a strategy for groups, honestly, Tori and I, our team, we could make up anything we want, right? However, like anything that we try to do, we want to use God's word to dictate why and how we execute ministry. And so for community groups, our blueprint is Acts 2, 42 through 47. And I'm just going to read this. You can read along with me as I read this because it's just an important part of how we do what we do. All right, here we go. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need, and every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Now, as I have read this passage over and over, looking for insights to pull from, trying to replicate what the disciples' model was, 4 things stand out to me. And you'll see them there on the left side of the page. 1, they studied the apostles' teaching. Okay, we have the Bible. They basically had the apostles there and their teaching, and so that's important. 2, they ate, they fellowshipped, they hung out. It said they broke bread. That was an important part of their meeting. 3, they prayed for, cared for, and met one another's needs. When somebody had a need, they met it as a group. And 4, lastly, they lived sent lives. They shared the gospel with everyone they came in contact with. Now, how do we know that from this passage? We'll look at verse 47. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So people were coming to know the Lord left and right. As this early church was going out into their communities, sharing their faith, people were coming by the droves to this early church. And that's something that we definitely want to replicate. All right, so go ahead and turn to the next page. Now, as I grappled with these 4 components, 4 words rose to the surface. And you'll see them right there on your left side. Study, socialize, support, and send. And guys, this right here is our game plan for groups. This is it. This is the playbook that we want you to walk with through the next year of groups. We want every community group to work toward incorporating these 4 things into your group. Why? Because I say so? No. Because that's what we see right here in the Bible. It's what the disciples modeled for us. All right? So we're going to walk through each one of these S's or these components. So if you'll turn the page, first thing we're going to look at is study. Now, as a leader, you guys are going to facilitate discussions. Now, based on both the sermon passage that's preached out of on Sunday as well as our pastor's sermon points. So they're going to preach, they're going to have application points from their sermon, and we're going to ask those questions in your groups. Now, our Next Step team will provide you with those questions, and you can get them, one, off the Church Center app on your phone, or you can go to our website, our group resources page, and you can download them. And here's the deal. We have questions for both the leader and the members. So if you want to, print them out. You've got your copy that's got a little bit more notes on one side, and then your members, it's a little bit more, it doesn't have as many of the notes on it. But you can print both of those off for both sets of people. All right, let's move on to social. Oh, let me just say one more thing. On the right side here, you'll see best practices for leading a discussion. That's a whole nother talk we don't have time for, but there's a lot of great tips that you can take from this page on how to lead a great discussion within your community group. All right, let's go ahead and flip to the next page. Let's talk about socializing a little bit. Let me ask you, why do you think socializing is so important? Why do you think it's so important? Well, first of all, as we discussed earlier, it's what we see in the Bible. It's right what we see the disciples doing. But secondly, it's written for you in the last sentence of that first paragraph. You see it there? It says, when fellowship is embraced, it breeds authenticity and vulnerability, which opens the door for people to share on a more intimate level. There's something that happens when we share food with one another. When we break bread over food, it lets the walls down in people's lives, and they begin to express things that they don't normally express otherwise. So that's why that's important. Socializing is important. You'll see some ideas right there on your right side for how you can socialize. And if you flip one more page, you're going to see a whole list of icebreakers. Now, these are icebreakers that my wife and I have used in a couple different groups, and these are there for the taking. You can use these. Sometimes we put them in the group questions, but if you want to pick from any one of these, you're welcome to. And here's what icebreakers do. They break the ice. When you sit down as a group, sometimes if you're going to talk about the Bible or bring up something heavy, especially with new people or even people in your group that might be introverted, being able to laugh and share about something funny or whatever, it does. It breaks the ice. It gets people talking. It brings their walls down before you launch into kind of something more serious. So that's what those icebreakers are there for. Let's go ahead and move to the next page, and we're going to talk about support. Now, as group leaders, guys, it is paramount that you guys embrace the care and the support of the people in your group. When group members experience difficult seasons in their life, we want you guys to be the front line of care and support for those people. And we want them to be able to turn to you for support. Maybe they're in the hospital and they want somebody to visit them, or one of moms gave birth and you set up a meal train, or maybe it's something that you text them during the week and you say, man, how's that job search doing? And you guys reach out individually to those group members and care for them and support them. A great way you can do that, obviously, is to practice this in your prayer time, to have a prayer time and pray for those prayer requests. And I won't spend much time talking about the other page because we're gonna talk about it a little bit later. But obviously, prayer is a huge part of that support. All right, let's flip one more, and we're going to talk about sending. Now, send is really broken up into two parts: outreach and multiplication. Now, in outreach, our goal is to reach each and every neighborhood here in Baton Rouge. And we do that as you and your group find ways to pray for, invest in, and invite non-believers to the next appropriate thing. And I know you've seen this before, so I won't go through it, but on the right side of the page is a whole strategy on ideas that you can use to pray for non-believers, to invest in their lives, and again, to invite them to the next appropriate thing. Maybe it's your community group. Maybe you're inviting them to your house when you're doing a social event with your community group to show them that, believers really, they can have fun too, right? And so you invite them into that context. But you want to bring your group into that too and get them on board with that. The other thing is multiplication. Multiplication simply means that we are constantly looking to make disciples that make disciples. And I want you to remember that the early church, what did they do? They added to their number daily those who were being saved. Actually, the Lord did. So they were faithful with the opportunities, and He's the one who saved them. So as far as multiplication goes, we want you guys to identify new leaders as they pop up in your group. And even from the beginning of the semester, we want you to begin identifying those people and begin coaching them, giving them opportunities to lead. Let them lead the discussion. Let them organize a social event or any aspect of your group, and let them lead out. And as they lead out, let your group in on the fact that you are apprenticing these leaders, so that as the end of our group year rolls around in late May, you guys can then commission them out. And maybe you're not commissioning them out of your group, but maybe they're starting D groups. And you're talking that through the whole year of when you're going to launch D groups and how these are going to be the leaders that launch those D groups. But maybe your group is growing and you've identified these leaders and they're going to multiply your group out. So that's a big part of that. And you'll see off to the left side, there's how to multiply your group with several of these steps on there. Let's keep turning. Structuring your community group. Now on this next page, I didn't make this up. This template is one that my wife and I have used for years in groups that we led out of our home. And this template basically incorporates all the components that we just talked about. Now, some of you may not like this template because it doesn't fit with the rhythms of your group, and that's okay. But here's the deal. I want you to make sure that whatever you guys do in your group, that it includes all four of the components that we just talked about. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to use this, but we do want you to incorporate all four of those components. Now, if you're just starting a group out, maybe you're launching in the fall, this is a great template to start with because, like I said, it incorporates all four of those things, and it answers a lot of the questions that you may have on how to get started. All right? Let's go one more page. let's talk about the first month essentials. Now, there's a lot here that we're not going to touch, but please read through these ideas before your first meeting. What you don't want to do is walk into your first week of community group like it's business as usual, like you just picked up from where you left off the last time you met, because you might have some new people there, and I really want you to start this year as though this is a new semester, a new year, and so you're going to lay down some ground rules. You're going to start by breaking the ice, maybe getting to know one another, especially if you have new people. Discuss the structure. Discuss these 4 components, and set expectations for your group and how you're going to model your group throughout the semester. All right, weeks 2 through 4, we want you guys to plan a social event. Now, that may not be you who plans that. I realize you're leading the discussion, and you might be hosting at your home, and you may be doing all these other things. So appoint that to somebody else. Hey, plan an event for the guys to go do or the girls to go do on one night. But plan a social event. Again, there's ideas on that structuring your template, structuring your community group page of ideas that you can use there. But plan a social event and put that on the calendar within the 2nd to 4 week area. And then the other thing is plan a go event, which I won't talk about right now because someone else is going to come up right after me and talk about that. So I won't talk about that. But the next thing is introduce the pray, invest, invite strategy. Teach the people within your group what that looks like and challenge them to do that as well. All right? If you will turn one more page, we'll talk through this and then we'll actually be done. How about that? On the next page, we highlight the Church Center app. Now, you're going to hear the Next Step team. We're going to beat this drum over and over all throughout the semester, and here's why. Our church, actually GroupLife, we have a goal, an internal goal, that we want to see 50% of all church attendees in discipleship relationships. So everybody that comes on Sunday mornings, we want at least half of them in discipleship relationships. And the only way we can measure that is, 1, by your rosters. So if you've got a super inflated roster, it's not giving us an accurate picture. Or 2, and this is just more important really, is taking attendance. You know, if on a week you don't take attendance and we collect those numbers, if you have a big goose egg next to your name, then we count you as a 0 as far as number of people that met this week. And you may have had 20 people that came together and met, but if you don't tell us that, we don't know it. And then we don't know whether or not we're hitting that goal or not. So we ask you to use the app, and there's a lot of things that you can do within the app. And you'll see some of these here on the screen. But on the app, you can check attendance each week, and you'll get an email each week that reminds you to do that. This is something new. You can actually add and remove group members straight from the app. And so you can go in and clean it up before groups start or before you launch your first week. You can also, I mentioned this earlier, access the group discussion questions. You can find those on there. And finally, I know a lot of groups, they use like GroupMe or whatever to do their group messaging. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I know some leaders say, well, I've got 70 people on my GroupMe, and I just don't want to remove anybody because then they'll get mad that I removed them, and I don't know what to do about that. Well, if you decide to use this as your messaging app, guess what? When you remove them, then they don't get the messages anymore. And if you want, you can blame it on us and say, hey, Dave removed you. I'll take the hit, right? I don't mind. But the idea is if they're on your roster and they're not coming, then we can't identify them as someone who needs to get into a group. But if you take them off and we run a report that shows these are all the people who aren't in groups, then we can reach out to them and say, hey, why don't you get into a group? Because we know they're not in your group. Does that make sense? So that's the Church Center app. And really that is the book, all right? So there's a lot more to this. I want to ask you to go ahead and take a deeper dive into this before your first meeting. All right, now I want to introduce one of our new staff members, Abram Everson. You can come on up here. Abram is our local and global outreach coordinator. And GroupLife partners with our global and local outreach team to help reach Baton Rouge with the gospel. So Abram, go ahead and come up here. And here's what I want you to do. Let's give him a hand. Thank you. Abram, why don't you tell them how groups can help reach the city of Baton Rouge?
All right.
I'll let you have the floor.
Okay, it's working. Thanks, Dave. First off, I just want to say this is amazing. Like, you guys seriously have done an amazing job with this. It really looks amazing. Okay, so, yeah, like Dave mentioned, I'm the local and global outreach coordinator. And so the reason that I'm here is to share with you guys what are called Go opportunities. And basically, we all know the 10-year vision of the chapel, that we want to maximize our growth capacity, to maximize our sending capacity, because we want to grow to a church of 3,000 in order to send 300 people into ministry and 100 of those to the least reached parts of the world. And so the reality that we face is that we actually have to grow to be a church of 3,000, which means all of us have to play our part together as one body, reaching out to our communities. And so what we have created for the chapel as a whole is what are called Go opportunities. And so if you look on your table, you should have one of these cards. So if you don't mind grabbing that, and then I'll just kind of run you through what Go opportunities are so that you know what's coming up for this fall semester. Okay, so first off, with our Go opportunities, what we have are two categories. The first category are what's called Go events. Those are our large-scale, chapel-wide events where we have the whole church pitching in on one big event. The second category are what's called Go grants. So if you look at the bottom, those are more on the scale of the individual community group or a handful of community groups coming together in order to either reach the community that they live in, so reaching out to your neighborhood, or it's maybe addressing a need within the city, something like partnering with the Baton Rouge Food Bank and meeting a specific need that they might have that you are aware of. And so I want to go back up to the upcoming Go events. So 2 Go events that we have scheduled for the chapel as a whole. The first one is what's called Fall Fest. I'm sure many of you have even participated in Fall Fest, but this is the large-scale fall festival. We host this at the Segan location. This is like hundreds of people come to this. We have inflatables. And this year, we're actually going to have what's called Trick or Trunk. And so this is where we'll have about 20 or so cars, volunteers who volunteer their cars. They come, they decorate them, they fill their trunks with candy, and basically kids come and load up on candy for the night. And then what we want to get across for Fall Fest is that this is not an event that's just where we as the chapel come and gather, but the vision of this is that we're actually living sent, and we are going with this event. So this is, like, if you can imagine the people who you are praying for, the people you are investing in, this is such a good opportunity to invite them. We talk about inviting people to the next appropriate thing. This is an event that is not a Sunday service, so it's not a church service. It's not your community group. It doesn't have that church feel to it, but it's something that you can introduce them to the chapel. You can introduce them to your community group. So it's a very low-threat invite, and this year that's going to be October 24th. That's a Sunday. That is the week before Halloween. So Halloween will be the 31st. So that is the week before. And like I said, we really want this to be something that you and your community group use and leverage to either invite your neighbors, to invite your friends, to invite your coworkers. And us as chapel-wide, we want to encourage that same vision. The second Go event is the Wildwood Christmas Party. So this is, I'm sure y'all are familiar with Wildwood and our partnership with them, but for over a decade now, we've partnered with Wildwood, and this is a school that has just lots of needs, and our goal is just to show them the love of Christ. And a way in which we've done that is to host an annual Christmas party. And just the feedback that I've heard from the principal and the teachers just in the short time of me being on staff and getting to know them, I mean, it's just amazing how much they love Miss Charlotte, how much they love the chapel. They truly can feel the love of Christ through this event. And so this is where we go in. Every room gets decorated. There's a volunteer in every room. There's an event. There's all sorts of things that go on. And they truly they really do look forward to this event. It's pretty amazing. So those are our 2 upcoming Go events, the big chapel-wide events. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you about are the Go grants. So if you look at the card, listed below that is a short paragraph that describes it. So I'll just read that to you. It says, Go grants are a way for your community group to go. They are a hands-on event enabling your community group to reach a neighborhood for Christ or bless those in need around the Baton Rouge area. Your group makes it happen. The chapel helps fund it. Have any of you heard of Go Grants before? Can you just raise your hand? Have any of you actually done a Go Grant? If you've done one, could you raise your hand? Okay, awesome. So there is a little bit of momentum. But the vision behind this, what we want to do with this is where you guys, because y'all are the ones who know your community. We don't know the specifics of your community, the needs, the people, your neighbors. So this is an opportunity for you and your community group to come up with a strategy, the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, the why, and you come up with a plan. You apply online. If you look on the card, there's a QR code. This QR code takes you directly to the online application, and so you can just scan that and apply. But we want you to lead your community group and empower your community group to come up with some really cool ideas. So this could be just something as simple as having a grill out. This could be something you do on LSU's campus, or it could be something where you partner with like the food bank or anything that you come up with, anything that you feel passionate about that will help your neighborhood, either your workplace or just the city of Baton Rouge in general. And so just a detail you need to know about that is we do have our fall deadline. That is October 15th. And then we'll also do another round of these in the spring semester, and that will be February 15th. The vision, like I said, for Go Grants is that you guys take ownership of this. This is something where you can really reach out to your community or a place where you feel passionate about reaching, where you can make an impact and invite people into your community group, into your life. And so again, I just wanted to go over, these are our Go opportunities. We have our Go events and our Go grants. And on the community group level, we would really love it if all of you guys focus in on Go grants. So you come up with the idea, you fill out the application, and then we'll have a review committee who looks at it. And then the chapel wants to empower you guys and catalyze you guys to reach out to your community by helping fund the event that you come up with. So yeah, those are our Go opportunities. We really look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and I think it's going to be a really good time. And I think, Tori, you're next?
Oh, there we go. It works. Yeah.